it's getting old. It's getting, and it wouldn't, the gameplay itself is fun. The gameplay is fine. And the loop would be fine if there was actually something happening with the story. But there's nothing going on here. It reminds me of Sea of Stars, which is a shame because I gave, Sea of Stars ultimately a pretty low ranking on my kind of scale. I don't know if I gave it a number, but it's pretty low on my... I have this app that I'm using. It's this game, sort of like an IMDb of games that you play. What's it called? I'll give it a little bit of a shout out. It's called... It's called My Games. It's just a free iPhone app, and you can use it to keep track of what you're playing, what you have coming up next, what you have in your backlog, what you've completed, what you've retired. You can rank all the games, and I ended up putting Sea of Stars like really low. I'm probably the only person on earth that put it this low. It's at a 2 out of 10, and it's a shame because I like almost every aspect of that game except for the most important part for an RPG for me personally, which is the storyline. Nothing happens in the game. You're just sort of robotically playing the game for no reason. But it's beautiful looking. The gameplay is fine. It's kind of like a, baby's first RPG sort of thing. It's very simple but fun. I enjoyed the actual playing of it for the most part for the whole time. And it's the same thing, unfortunately, with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where I do enjoy the gameplay. The fighting is fun. There's enough depth there. The materia system, the gameplay loop of exploring the open world, finding these little random battles that you can enter that have little mini tasks that you're supposed to do within them to fully complete them, little mini missions while you fight. There's Chadley with all of his things where you can challenge summons, and if you beat the challenge, then you get that summon. There's the strategy of all the materia and how you're going to level up those and unlock different moves and how are you going to distribute them. It's really fun, and exploring the map is fun, and finding the little the life springs and the towers and stuff. It's kind of like I said the last time, it's kind of a typical open world affair, but it's fun. It is fun to try to check off these things, except when you're just doing it over and over and over again and there's no development story-wise, then it just makes me start to wonder, why am I playing this? Like, what's going on here? This game is so weird, and I'm excited to go check out other people's reviews because I stayed away from them. Obviously, I didn't want any spoilers, and so I'm curious. I know it got high ratings, and so I'm curious how other people felt about this aspect of the game because it's very strange. For an example, like, you go to this one town that's essentially like a resort town, and it's full of mini games and fun little things, and you spend quite a bit of time there, and nothing is actually developing really story-wise. And then when you finally complete that gameplay loop and you get to the next town, it's another resort town. Like, it's another one. And you're like, I was just at a resort town. Why are there two back-to-back resort towns? Like you couldn't have, even just putting them like not back-to-back would be decent, but they're back-to-back, sort of like these mini game filled resort towns. And you are sort of forced to do these mini games, and they're fun. The mini games are fun. Your target practice, or this is a kind of a what's that game called? Like a Rocket League type chocobo thing, like a sport. They're fun to do, and they're not side mini games. They're kind of forced upon you. So they are fun, but they're very time consuming, and you just spent the time doing it, and then you have to do it again, and it just and nothing has really happened in between the two towns that really push the story forwards. The main, like the overarching storyline of this game essentially is you are following these robed men that are affected by the Mako, the materia stuff. They're slowly dying. They're kind of a glimpse at Cloud's future, what he may become. They become sort of decrepit, mindless drones, and they're just slowly walking. And so you're following them and hoping to eventually find Sephiroth. That's kind of the dressing of the game. So you're just spending time going from town to town, following these robed men who are like slowly like they're zombies essentially. They're zombies in robes. And I thought at first that was just going to be like the first initial hour of the game or something, or like that would lead you to the next story beat. But that's the entire game so far. Every town, okay, here they are. Let's keep going to the next town. Let's keep following them again. That's the only storyline that's actually in the game. There's nothing interesting at all in the overall story of the game, and it's just so disappointing. Now there are side stories, but they come off sort of cheesy to me because it's like they're so forced, and also kind of like, hey, if we have we have more important things to do here rather than exploring these side stories. So it kind of comes off a bit unrealistic. And even more so because it's just like, it's so convenient. It's like really every character you meet, just coincidentally, the next town you go to happens to be where they were born, and they have an entire little mini arc that you're going to experience to flesh out their backstory. But it's like, I don't want to know every single party member's backstory because I don't really care, to be honest. There's just too many of them. There's too many characters. And every time you go to a new town, you pick up another character as well. And then you learn that person's... It's just like... you don't get time to even bond with your existing party members because you're always being introduced to new party members and then exploring their backstories. It's very rare that you get to flesh out... Like, there are side stories that do... They're not even side stories. They're part of the main quest, but they're not really... they're not building upon the overall thing. They're just kind of the side. That's why I kind of refer to this game as like one of those TV shows that has a really good first season, and then the second season they get extended for like 20 episodes back in the day, and they use those extra episodes to just explore all of the side tertiary characters, and it ends up being a weaker feeling season because you're just like, I don't really care about all these other characters, and it just feels like a weak TV show where you're just going off on all these tangents that I don't care about, and they're not that interesting. And I think it's just because they're paced weirdly. There's too many of them, and when you have this kind of doomsday counter with Sephiroth in the background, I'm always kind of wondering, like, what are we doing here? Like, let's get on with things. There's a part early in the game. It's I think the second town you visit, maybe the third, I forget, but you infiltrate this. I think it's a Shinra military kind of thing. It was so long ago I can't even remember what it was. But you infiltrate Shinra, and you go undercover by wearing their clothes, and you have to recruit all of these people to march with you in a parade. You're the new leader of this parade infantry. It's hard to explain. I don't even know the proper terminology. I forget. But yeah, you're the new leader. You're posing as the leader of this like elite fleet of people, and you're going to do this big dance in a military parade. And before you do it, you have to go round up all the people you're going to hire for your presentation, and it just takes so long. All you're doing is walking around. It's like hide and seek. You have to find these people in this maze of a town, these NPCs. You have to hunt. It's just like the game starts to feel like the designers were like, what can we do to make this game last as long as possible at the expense of fun? It's just like, okay, here, I feel like they realize like, oh man, this game is like 2 hours long unless we force everybody to do the most mundane tasks and as many of them as humanly possible. And it just starts to feel like such a slap in the face as a player and a huge design failure where I honestly, like, I don't like being mean to this extent, but like, I feel like if you were a member of this team, or at least someone with some kind of impactful influence, and you shipped this game and you were fine with what you did to players in it, I think you should be embarrassed, and you really need to rethink what you're doing in games, because you're wasting so many people's time. This is the most bloated game I have ever played in my entire life. Almost every activity you're doing is a waste of time. Nothing, like, so much of it is boring. So much of it is not fun. And I'm not talking about the actual gameplay. The running around and fighting people, going from town to town, that stuff is fun. That's fine. It may not be inspired or unique or original, but it's at least fun. You know, exploring, like I said, finding the springs and revealing more of the map, doing the typical open world stuff. None of it is new or unique, and I don't even know if it really fits the Final Fantasy genre really that well. It feels a bit kind of strange, but it's fine. It's fun, even if you're repeating it over and over again. But I'm talking about these little tasks they make you do within towns that sometimes it's like, okay, you got to do this thing. It's going to take 15 minutes, and your character is walking the whole time. You cannot run for this part. You got to walk, and you're just pressing A and then walking slowly over here, pressing A again or whatever, X, and it's just like, why are you doing this to me? It feels like you are solely doing this just to make the game longer. And like I said, I eventually kind of ended up just getting offended with the game because it was so egregious to what they were doing that I just couldn't forgive the game or come up with more excuses for it. So the game went from being like, oh, this was like, could be a contender or at least on par with the first one, and now it's way down. If I were to assign it a number in my... Hey, thanks for listening to this clip of my podcast. I publish new episodes on the last Friday of every month at 12:45 p.m. PST for all premium members of my Patreon. My name is Cooper Bebo. I'm an actor, writer, and producer of film, television, and video games. Head to patreon.com/CooperBebo. You can sign up for free, get access to my blog, or you can toss me a few dollars if you want to support me and get special bonuses like this very podcast, or you can subscribe to my YouTube. You'll continue to get free clips and a brand new video every single Wednesday. So whether you like to watch, listen, or read, I've got something for everyone. I've also got a video game called Billy Saves the World. Please check that out on Steam right now. I've got movie projects in the works. I update all of that stuff in Discord all of the time. Again, the basic channels are free to join. Just head to patreon.com/CooperBebo to get access. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next clip.